A year and a half ago, I had to make one of the most difficult decisions of my married life. I permanently banned my mother-in-law from babysitting my children after she repeatedly ignored my house rules and put my daughter's health at serious risk. What started as small boundary violations escalated into something that nearly destroyed my family. But by the end of this story, you'll see how I got the most epic revenge that taught her a lesson she'll never forget. My name is Kimberly, I'm 29 years old, and I live in Portland, Oregon with my husband Edward and our 2 children. To understand why I had to take such drastic action, I need to tell you about the history between my mother-in-law Patricia and me. From the very beginning, our relationship was complicated in ways I never expected. Edward and I met 5 years ago at a marketing conference in Seattle. He was presenting on digital advertising strategies, and I was there representing the nonprofit where I worked. After his presentation, I approached him with questions about social media outreach. We talked for hours that night, and I was immediately drawn to his passion for his work and his genuine kindness. 6 months later, he proposed to me during a weekend trip to the Oregon coast. I said yes without hesitation because I knew I had found my soulmate. When Edward first introduced me to his family, I was nervous but excited. His father David seemed warm and welcoming, but Patricia was different. She was polite on the surface, but I could sense something cold underneath. During our first dinner together, she asked me pointed questions about my career, my family background, and my plans for the future. With a sweet smile that didn't reach her eyes, Patricia said, "I just want to make sure you're right for my son, dear." Even though her words sounded caring, I felt like I was being interviewed for a job I wasn't sure I wanted. In 2021, our son Tyler was born. He was a healthy, happy baby with his father's dark hair and my green eyes. From the moment I held him, I knew that protecting him would be my life's greatest mission. During those early weeks, Patricia visited frequently, but her help came with constant criticism. She would comment on everything from how I fed Tyler to how I dressed him. With a condescending tone, she would say, "In my day, we did things differently, and our children turned out just fine." Every time she made these comments, I felt my patience wearing thin. When Tyler was 8 months old, I became pregnant with our second child. Edward and I were thrilled about expanding our family, but Patricia's reaction was different. She pulled me aside during a family dinner and said, "Are you sure you can handle 2 children? Some women just aren't cut out for motherhood." Her words stung, but I tried to dismiss them as misguided concern. In early 2022, our daughter Lucy was born. She was smaller than Tyler had been, but perfectly healthy. However, within her first few weeks, we discovered that Lucy had severe food allergies. After several scary reactions, her pediatrician diagnosed her with allergies to dairy, eggs, and nuts. The doctor was very clear that exposure to these allergens could cause anaphylactic shock, which could be life-threatening. From that day forward, Edward and I became extremely vigilant about Lucy's diet and environment. I created detailed lists of safe foods, checked every ingredient label multiple times, and kept EpiPens in every room of the house. When Lucy started eating solid foods, I prepared everything myself to ensure her safety. With a serious tone, I explained to everyone in the family, Lucy's allergies are not something we can take lightly. Even the smallest exposure could put her in the hospital. Everyone seemed to understand the gravity of the situation, or so I thought. When Lucy turned 1, I decided to return to work part-time. Edward and I needed the extra income, and I felt ready to have some adult interaction again. We considered daycare, but with Lucy's allergies, we felt more comfortable having family watch the children. Patricia immediately volunteered to babysit, and despite my reservations, Edward convinced me to give her a chance. He said, "Mom raised 3 children, she knows what she's doing, and she loves Tyler and Lucy." Against my better judgment, I agreed to let her babysit 2 days a week. Before Patricia's first day of babysitting, I spent hours going over Lucy's care instructions. I showed her the list of safe foods I had prepared, demonstrated how to use the EpiPen, and explained the signs of an allergic reaction. I also gave her strict instructions about Tyler's routine, including his nap schedule and screen time limits. With a firm voice, I said, "Patricia, I need you to follow these rules exactly. Lucy's safety depends on it." She nodded and said, "Of course, dear, I understand completely." For the first few weeks, everything seemed to go smoothly. Patricia would arrive on time, and the children seemed happy when I returned from work. But slowly, I started noticing small things that bothered me. Tyler would mention watching movies that weren't on his approved list, and Lucy would be fussy in ways that suggested her routine had been disrupted. When I brought these concerns to Patricia, she would dismiss them with a wave of her hand, saying, "Children need to be flexible, Kimberly. You can't control everything." The first major incident happened on a Tuesday in March. When I came home from work, I found Tyler sitting in front of the television watching a violent action movie that was clearly inappropriate for a 2-year-old. Lucy was crying in her high chair, and Patricia was nowhere to be seen. I found her in the backyard on her phone, seemingly oblivious to the chaos inside. With anger rising in my voice, I said, "Patricia, what is Tyler watching? And why is Lucy crying?" She looked annoyed that I had interrupted her call and replied, "They're fine, Kimberly. Children are more resilient than you think." That evening, I had a serious conversation with Edward. I explained what had happened and expressed my concerns about his mother's babysitting. Edward tried to defend her, saying, "Mom has her own way of doing things, but she loves the kids. Maybe you're being too strict." His words hurt because I felt like he was choosing his mother's feelings over our children's well-being. I said, "Edward, this isn't about being strict. It's about keeping our children safe and following the rules we've established." He promised to talk to his mother, but I could see in his eyes that he thought I was overreacting. The second incident was more serious. I came home to find Lucy eating goldfish crackers, which contained dairy and could have sent her into anaphylactic shock. When I saw what was happening, my heart nearly stopped. I immediately grabbed the crackers away from Lucy and checked her for signs of a reaction. Fortunately, she seemed fine, but I was terrified of what could have happened. With my voice shaking from fear and anger, I confronted Patricia. "How could you give Lucy dairy? I specifically told you about her allergies." Patricia's response shocked me. She said, "A few crackers won't hurt her. You baby her too much, and that's why she has all these problems." That night, I was so upset that I couldn't sleep. I told Edward what had happened, and for the first time, he seemed genuinely concerned. He said, "I'll talk to Mom tomorrow and make sure she understands how serious Lucy's allergies are." But when he spoke to Patricia the next day, she claimed I was exaggerating and that Lucy was perfectly fine. She also suggested that I was being an overprotective mother and that my anxiety was affecting the children negatively. Despite my growing concerns, Edward convinced me to give Patricia another chance. He said, "She's family, Kimberly. We need to work through this together." I reluctantly agreed, but I installed a nanny cam in our living room without telling anyone. I needed to know what was really happening when I wasn't home. The footage I captured over the next few weeks would change everything. On the camera, I saw Patricia regularly ignoring Lucy's dietary restrictions. She fed her cookies, gave her milk, and even let her eat off Tyler's plate when he was having foods Lucy couldn't have. I watched in horror as she threw away the detailed care instructions I had left and rolled her eyes when Lucy started showing signs of distress. Most shocking of all, I saw her give Lucy Benadryl to calm her down when she became fussy after eating something she shouldn't have. The breaking point came on a Friday in May. I had left work early due to a migraine and decided to come home to rest. When I walked into the house, I found Lucy having a full allergic reaction. Her face was swollen, she was struggling to breathe, and she was covered in hives. Patricia was standing in the kitchen, looking panicked and holding her phone. When she saw me, she said, "I was just about to call you. I think Lucy ate something she shouldn't have." I immediately grabbed Lucy and administered her EpiPen while calling 911. As we waited for the ambulance, I noticed an empty peanut butter jar on the counter and realized that Patricia had given Lucy a peanut butter sandwich. The very thing that could have killed my daughter was sitting right there in plain sight. With tears streaming down my face and rage building in my chest, I screamed at Patricia, "How could you do this? You could have killed her." Patricia's response was what finally broke me. Instead of apologizing or showing remorse, she said, "How was I supposed to know she was really allergic? Children today have so many fake allergies that parents make up for attention." At that moment, I realized that Patricia had never taken Lucy's allergies seriously. She had been playing Russian roulette with my daughter's life because she thought she knew better than the doctors. The ambulance arrived within minutes, and Lucy was rushed to the hospital. The emergency room doctor told us that if I hadn't administered the EpiPen when I did, Lucy could have died. Those words hit me like a physical blow. As I sat in the hospital room watching my daughter recover, I made a decision that would change our family forever. Patricia would never be alone with my children again. When we returned home from the hospital, I confronted Patricia directly. With a voice filled with cold fury, I said, "You are no longer welcome to babysit my children. You put Lucy's life in danger, and I will never forgive you for that." Patricia's face turned red with anger and she shouted, "You can't keep me from my grandchildren. I have rights." I stood my ground and replied, "You have no rights when it comes to endangering my children. You're banned from this house." Edward was torn between supporting me and maintaining peace with his mother. For days, he tried to convince me to reconsider, but I was firm in my decision. I told him, "If you want to have a relationship with your mother, that's your choice. But she will never be alone with our children again." Eventually, Edward realized that I was right, and he supported my decision, though I could see it was painful for him. Patricia didn't accept my decision quietly. She began a campaign to turn the family against me, telling everyone who would listen that I was an unstable mother who was keeping her from her grandchildren. She called me controlling, paranoid, and vindictive. Some family members believed her story and started treating me coldly at family gatherings. The stress of dealing with the family drama while trying to protect my children was overwhelming. But Patricia's biggest mistake was underestimating me. She thought that if she made life difficult enough, I would eventually give in and let her back into our lives. She was wrong. Instead of backing down, I decided to teach her a lesson she would never forget. I started planning my revenge, and it would be more devastating than anything she could have imagined. First, I compiled all the evidence of Patricia's negligence. I had hours of nanny cam footage showing her ignoring Lucy's dietary restrictions, giving her unauthorized medication, and throwing away care instructions. I also had photos of the empty peanut butter jar and Lucy's medical records from the hospital visit. I organized everything into a comprehensive file that clearly showed a pattern of dangerous behavior. Next, I reached out to every family member and friend who had heard Patricia's version of events. I invited them to my house for a family meeting, where I would set the record straight. I told them, "I want everyone to understand what really happened and why I made the decision I did." 23 people showed up, including Patricia's sisters, Edward's cousins, and several family friends. During the meeting, I presented my evidence methodically. I showed the nanny cam footage of Patricia feeding Lucy dairy products and throwing away care instructions. I displayed the photos of the peanut butter jar and explained how close Lucy had come to dying. I read excerpts from Lucy's medical records and the emergency room report. The room was completely silent as everyone absorbed what they were seeing. Then I played the audio recording I had made of Patricia's reaction at the hospital. Everyone heard her say that children today have fake allergies that parents make up for attention. They heard her dismiss Lucy's life-threatening condition as something I had fabricated. The shock on everyone's faces was evident as they realized how wrong they had been about the situation. After presenting all the evidence, I said, "This is why Patricia is no longer allowed to babysit my children. This isn't about being controlling or vindictive. This is about protecting my daughter's life." The room erupted in shocked murmurs as family members began to understand the truth. Patricia's sister Linda stood up and said, Patricia, how could you do this to your own granddaughter? One by one, family members began expressing their horror at what they had learned. But I wasn't finished with my revenge yet. I had one more card to play that would ensure Patricia never tried to manipulate the family again. I had been documenting everything she said about me and my parenting, and I had discovered something that would completely destroy her credibility. During my investigation, I found out that Patricia had been telling people that I was mentally unstable and that she was considering pursuing grandparents' rights to get custody of my children. She had even consulted with a lawyer about the possibility of having me declared an unfit mother. This information came from her own sister, who was concerned about Patricia's behavior and decided to warn me. With this knowledge, I made my final move. I stood up in front of the entire family and said, "There's one more thing you all need to know. Patricia has been telling people that she wants to take my children away from me. She's been claiming that I'm mentally unstable and that she would be a better parent than I am." The room went completely silent as everyone processed this information. I continued, "She's been working with a lawyer to explore grandparents' rights, trying to find a way to get custody of Tyler and Lucy. This isn't about love or concern for her grandchildren. This is about control and revenge because I dared to set boundaries to protect my children." The shock on everyone's faces was palpable as they realized the extent of Patricia's manipulation. Patricia's face turned white as she realized her plans had been exposed. She started to stammer, "That's not. I never. You're twisting everything." But the damage was done. Everyone in the room could see that she had been playing a dangerous game with my family's well-being. Edward's cousin Janet spoke up, "Aunt Patricia, is this true? Were you really trying to take Kimberly's children away?" Patricia couldn't deny it because too many people had heard her talking about it. She finally admitted, "I just thought the children would be better off with someone more stable." Her words hung in the air like a bomb that had just exploded. The reaction was swift and devastating. One by one, family members began expressing their disgust with Patricia's behavior. Her own sisters told her they were ashamed of her actions. Edward's cousins said they couldn't believe she would try to break up our family. Even David, Patricia's husband, looked at her with disappointment and said, "I can't believe you would do this to our son's family." By the end of the meeting, Patricia was completely isolated. Everyone now understood that I had been protecting my children, not trying to be controlling. They saw that Patricia had been the one manipulating the situation, trying to turn the family against me so she could get her way. The respect and sympathy she had built up over months of playing the victim evaporated in a single evening. But my revenge wasn't complete yet. I had one final surprise that would ensure Patricia never tried to interfere with my family again. I announced to the room, "I want everyone to know that I've been working with a lawyer to get a restraining order against Patricia. The evidence of her endangering Lucy and her attempts to manipulate the family are more than enough to get court protection." The room erupted in shocked gasps. Patricia's face went from white to red as she realized the full extent of what I had done. She shouted, "You can't do this to me. I'm their grandmother." I looked her directly in the eyes and said, "You stopped being their grandmother the moment you put Lucy's life at risk. Now you're just someone who threatened my family, and I'm going to make sure you can't do it again." The restraining order was granted 2 weeks later. Patricia was legally prohibited from coming within 500 feet of our house, our children's school, or our workplace. She was also forbidden from contacting us directly or through third parties. The judge reviewed all my evidence and agreed that Patricia posed a threat to our family's safety and well-being. The impact of my revenge was immediate and long-lasting. Patricia's reputation in the family was completely destroyed. No one trusted her anymore, and she was excluded from family gatherings and holidays. Her own sisters barely spoke to her, and several family members told me they were proud of how I had handled the situation. The woman who had tried to paint me as an unstable mother was now seen as the real threat to family harmony. Edward was initially shocked by the extent of my planning, but he eventually told me, "I'm proud of you for protecting our family. I should have supported you from the beginning." Our marriage actually became stronger after this experience because we had weathered a major crisis together and come out united on the other side. Most importantly, my children were safe. Lucy's health improved dramatically once Patricia was out of our lives. Without the constant stress of allergen exposure, she became a happier, more confident child. Tyler also benefited from having consistent rules and boundaries. Both children thrived in an environment where their safety and well-being were the top priorities. 6 months later, Patricia tried to appeal the restraining order, but her request was denied. She had violated the order twice by trying to approach the children at their school, which only strengthened my case. The judge extended the restraining order for another 2 years and warned Patricia that any further violations would result in jail time. Today, a year and a half later, our family is happier and more peaceful than ever. We've built strong relationships with the family members who supported us, and we've created new traditions that don't include Patricia. Lucy is now 3 years old and healthy, with her allergies well managed. Tyler is 4 and loves being a protective big brother. As for Patricia, she lives a much lonelier life now. Most of the family has distanced themselves from her, and she's had to face the consequences of her actions. She lost the respect of her children, her sisters, and her friends. The woman who thought she could manipulate and control our family learned that some battles aren't worth fighting. Sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh in my revenge, but then I remember Lucy's swollen face and labored breathing that day, and I know I did the right thing. No one has the right to endanger a child, not even a grandmother. My job as a mother is to protect my children, and that's exactly what I did. The experience taught me that sometimes the people who claim to love us the most can be the ones who hurt us the deepest. But it also showed me that standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult, is always worth it. My children are safe, my family is strong, and Patricia learned a lesson she'll never forget.
Did you enjoy this story of family justice and mother-in-law revenge? Subscribe to Family Stories Daily for more dramatic tales of betrayal and triumph, and tell us about your own toxic family experiences in the comments below.